So, Henry, you have a very interesting and impressive career as a sales professional and a leader in sales. I would assume that there's been quite a bit of an evolution in your career throughout the past 17 years. Do you find that as your career evolves, you rely more and more on your network?
I believe as my career evolved, I'm always faced with new challenges. And it's really the power of the network is to know who to ask about which topics at what time. And you need people that you can trust and that trust you where this comes from and how to get better. I believe it was Richard Branson who once said that it's not about what you know, but it's about who you know. And this is very true about your career and the context which you have in order to support you on your journey through your life and your career. And for me personally in sales, I think it's very important to be intentional about who you are and how you want to be identified. And I also believe this is one of the key success factors for people that have a long-lasting sales career. And being identified by others is crucial. And you do that by having the character of following up, being intentional, helping people, being there for your community and your network. And it's very difficult to spend time on this deliberately at the beginning of your career because building relationships is a long time game. The power of the network really becomes obvious over the long run. It's not a short-term win factor which comes in here. It's a bit like compound interest. The more you invest in it for a long time, it'll eventually bring you a lot of benefits.
I really love that analogy, and I guess that brings us on to the next question, which is how do you feel that Covve has added value to your existing relationships?
Let me answer to this in a story because I'm also part of other people's network, and I can give you an example of how it's really added value to existing relationships in a sales context. I used to live in Berlin, and I know a lot of people that have tried to buy houses or who are selling houses in Berlin, and it's always difficult. And there's somebody, a real estate agent, who really looked after his network. He invited me to his birthday parties, and he was 50 and I was 30. He was always very intentional about his network and trying to add value to it. And it was obvious he was doing it differently and very honest and true and trying to deliver value to everybody. So I've met a lot of real estate agents, especially in Berlin, but there's something about him which was different because I think he genuinely cared about meaningful relationships. And over the last 10 years, I have had multiple people come my way who said, "Hey, I'm moving to Berlin. Have you got somebody you can recommend for buying a house or selling an apartment?" And I passed him on to my friend who is part of my network and I'm part of his network. He has sold houses for people that I know who are all very happy with how it's gone because there's a moment of trust in these kind of relationships that we've built over time. He has made hundreds of thousands of euros in commission through these things, and I can go into my network and tap into it and give these great contacts to other people. And of course, this works in every kind of way. And Covve really helps me to be intentional about relationships and pass them on from people that I trust because I have a meaningful connection to them. And that's a bit different just to having a high level connection about other than just having connections with people where you pick up the phone and you stay in contact and you're vulnerable to each other and you build strong relationships over a long time.
That is really interesting to hear, and the value of being able to go a step further, not just caring for your own network on a personal level, but also bringing other people together. How easy did you find it was to integrate Covve into your daily routine?
I think like every habit, it takes time, and I think I also started it too wrong because I got too engaged into it and I started adding too many relationships in it too fast, which just overwhelmed me. But I have found my groove and I think it's perfect now. So I now set aside dedicated time for relationships. And one feature which really helps me is the integration of messages within Covve, which means I get a reminder which tells me when to reach out to somebody. And all I have to do is go into that reminder and then within Covve start to reach out via the messaging app, which I choose, to then schedule a call. And that makes that habit of me reaching out in order to have these conversations very, very frictionless. It just makes it a very easy, and I think it's fantastic.
It's great to hear that you set aside time and you dedicate time within your day to be able to have that habit of using Covve within your daily routine. So if you were to talk to a new user about Covve, how would you describe Covve? What would you tell them about it to get the most out of it?
I would say start slow. It sounds a bit intuitive, but it's because Covve is so simple, you fall into the trap of putting too many contacts in there just to get going. And it's not about being busy, it's about being intentional. And I mean, of course, have a lot of contacts in there and go, but it's really about building that habit and going through your contacts and seeing which ones you put into what kind of category and being deliberate about it. It's not a new database. You have a database, I'm sure. You have the contacts somewhere, but it's about building meaningful relationships. And that is what the difference is and the real power of Covve. So my suggestion for somebody who's using it newly, go slow and be very intentional, because it will grow very quickly. And then make sure you set the data in there well from the beginning.
That is really good advice. Given that you've been using Covve for a while now, what would you say your favorite feature of Covve is, and why is it so valuable to you?
I think the first feature which comes to my mind is the one why I wanted Covve initially, but it's not the one which is my favorite feature now. So why I wanted it initially is because in the general notes, it saves it on my Apple Card as well. So when I look in contact, I know exactly what I talked about last time, which is fantastic. It's a great feature. But I think the real power is that if I go into Covve at the times which I set to myself to have this habit of reaching out to people, I have the ability to message straight out of Covve to set up appointments to have conversations. And that is a real game changer because it just makes it very frictionless. So I look in and I see, well, I want to reach out to person A. And person A, I click on it and then I say reach out, and I press, I want to do it on WhatsApp, for instance, or a text message. And then I just say, let's reach out, let's have a conversation. How does Next Week work for you? And it's out of the way, and it's already stored as we've had contact. And that makes it frictionless. And I absolutely love it because it just gets the tension away of having to set these appointments. I think it's fantastic.
So I guess as a final question, because I want to be conscious of your time as well, but what would you say your biggest challenge has been so far in keeping up with your network?
My biggest challenge really over the last years has changed, and I have moved to a smaller town. And I used to live in metropolitan cities in the center and go out and meet the people after work, which keeps your network alive. It also just keeps you busy. And differentiating between being intentional and being busy about networking is important, I think. And I've really started to be very intentional and preparing my trips. So when now I leave my small town to go on a business trip to go somewhere, I make sure to see who else is in the area, be very intentional about meeting these people. And that has really helped me to be more deliberate and intentional. And I think actually it has helped me to have more meaningful relationships. Not as many, knowing everybody, but more meaningful ones, which actually help me along the way going forward.
That's great. Henry, thank you so much for your time today. It's been great speaking to you.
Thank you so much.
We really appreciate it.